Good morning. On behalf of the Alliance of Women in Workers' Compensation, I want to welcome you to today's webinar. Today's webinar is entitled Finding Your Anchor in the Present Moment and is being broadcast today, March 9th, 2023. Before we get started, I would like to thank our corporate sponsors for their support on hosting events such as this. They support us not because they want their logos up on a screen, but they support the cause, which is to effect positive change in the workers' compensation industry through networking, supporting, mentoring, and collaboration. The Alliance is inclusive of all professionals in workers' compensation, regardless of career stage, with the belief that we can learn from and support each other. This year, our theme is Together Towards Tomorrow. Be sure to head to the Alliance website for all upcoming events. We are excited to be hosting webinars, collaboration sessions, as well as in-person events throughout 2023. Be sure to check back on our website for registration details. If you cannot make one of our virtual or in-person events, don't worry. All events will be recorded and on demand for our followers. The Alliance grew so much last year as we launched several new chapters. Be sure to connect with your local ambassador for upcoming events to kick off your year with the Alliance. If you would like more details on the ambassador program, check out a replay of our January panel where we highlighted the plan for this year. Change is preceded by trust. It is through acceptance and inclusion that trust will be formed and positive impact will occur. The Alliance is committed to creating a safe space in the workers' compensation industry for women of diverse backgrounds and experiences through a shared culture that integrates various perspectives. This is who we are and who we will be. The time to do better and be better is now. The Alliance understands that diversity is a journey that will take time to make meaningful changes for our organization, its followers, and supporters. We will be intentional in making progress along our key pillars of change. Turning to today's webinar, does it feel like the external world is leaning a little more some days and feeling grounded within it is off? Today we will recalibrate, finding our anchor in stormy weather with both activities and nuggets of wisdom from each other. Join Danielle Michael, Business Development Liaison for the Rocky Mountain region of Learning Services, as she leads us through ideas, scenarios, and ways to ground ourselves in today's world. This is a live session and will work best if you help facilitate. Please comment and ask questions using the chat feature on the screen. This particular session will be most impactful if you engage, so we would love to see your questions, your comments, and your wisdom in real time. Thank you so much for the time you're spending with us today, and we hope you enjoy this webinar.
Hello. Oh, great. I hope you guys can hear me now. Thank you, Lori, for that introduction. I'm Danielle Michael, and I'm really excited to be here with you guys today to talk about anchoring in the present moment. So before we get started into the presentation, I want to do a quick pulse check. There are several of you guys on the call today, I believe over 100, which is great turnout. And so I won't be able to see everyone's smiling faces. So we're going to communicate today through the chat box. So if you're looking at your screen, it's going to be on the bottom there that says chat, and you can pull up that box and you'll be able to enter any information that you want to share and then be able to see what folks are sharing as well. So with that, let's go ahead and put it to use right now. And just do a quick pulse check with me on how you're doing right now entering this meeting today. So what is your current state of being? If you can say that with a word or a short phrase. Happy, great, fantastic. Good, multitasking. Yes, we're doing that a lot lately. A little overwhelmed, I'm seeing too. Grateful. Yes, a full plate. And I really appreciate you guys taking time today and carving out, spending some time learning some tools. And hopefully by the end of the session today, you'll have some good nuggets to walk away from. Okay, perfect. All right, so we've got really a spectrum of things that folks are experiencing right now. So our first thing we're going to get into actually is Well, we're going to transition into our slideshow here in a bit. Well, what I want you to do is, whether you're sitting or standing, or if you're multitasking and maybe walking, wherever you're at, I want you to really get into your body. And we're going to start doing that by really just focusing on the breath. So right now, no matter where you're at, if you can carve out a little time right now and just take a deep breath in and focus on it. And breathe out. Take another deep breath in and breathe out. And I want you to settle into your body and really let gravity take its course and feel the heaviness. And if you can, shut your eyes if it's safe to do so. And as you continue breathing, start focusing on other areas of your body. So see if your shoulders are a little scrunched up to the ears, and if they are, in your breath, go ahead and drop them down. Relax. And if your jaw is feeling a little tight, go ahead and see if you can just loosen it up a little bit. Continue to take deep breaths in and out. And as everything is going down to the ground and feeling a little heavier, continue to take those breaths. And this time, check in with your body to see if you have any tension or something that feels stuck anywhere. And if there is something, go ahead and, as you take a deep breath in, tighten it a little bit. And as you breathe out, loosen it up a little bit. Continue to breathe in and out. And if you need another breath or two to loosen that area that might be a little tight, that's great. Go ahead and do that. If you don't have anything that feels like it's tight right now, see if you can just breathe in the energy and the presence of where you're at right now. Another deep breath, and exhale out anything that's left that you don't need. And when you're ready, go ahead and wiggle your toes. Get back into your body. If your eyes were closed, go ahead and open those back up. And I'd like to get a pulse check from you guys on, did anything shift in that, couple minutes where you were settling back into your body? Did anyone experience a shift? Oh, good. Great, I'm glad. Yeah, sometimes we go in, good. I'm glad to hear tension is decreasing. Sometimes our lives are so packed full of what we have to do and moving on to the next thing. And so really one of the key components of finding our anchor in the present moment, and I hope my slideshow, there we go. So we have all of these things that are happening around us. So one of the pieces I did want to talk about today is transitions. So a lot of times we will put an anchor in and we are bold and we are strong and we did a great job in whatever task or activity that we were doing. And then we are like, oh, we've got to hop and move to the next moment. So we take our anchor with us and we don't transition all the time to the next thing. And so we've carried whatever was with us from the previous thing into the current moment. And that is a little tricky for us because it takes away for us to be present in the other moment, because we've carried some extra stuff with us that we don't need. And so just being able to carve out time and incorporate that into our schedules, even if it's just a few seconds, is huge transition to helping us anchor in a present moment. So I know meditation, a minor meditation is something that we just did, but I would really love to hear from the rest of you guys on how you transition if you do, and if you don't, what are some things that you think could easily help you transition from one moment to the next? I can tell you for, having a big meeting or doing something, I do power poses. I don't know how many of you guys do that, but just to really get the body ready to transition. Deep breaths, great. Let the dogs out. Dogs and animals in general, I think, are a perfect example of transitions. And how does that help? Walking is great, exercising. So transitions are so vital for that stress reduction. I'm also curious on how many of you guys carve out the time to transition. Are you guys making that a priority just as much as the activity? Or do you sometimes just put that by the wayside and just keep plowing through? Meditation, yes, that's another good one as well. All right, so any other transitions that you guys do? Oh, when you fit in, you do take it out sometimes. Yeah, and that is tricky because we really do need them to be in the present moment. And it's not just transitioning sometimes from one thing to the next thing. Sometimes we might even catch ourselves in the new thing, the new activity or the new meeting, and we're like, we're off. We're not in balance right now. And so just even being able to stop for a moment and either focus on the breath, changing the body disposition, any of that stuff can help with that as well. Yes, and incorporating more throughout the day, I like that as well. Really thinking about the transition from one thing to the next, and trying different things and seeing what works for you. All right, so transitions are also an important aspect. In my coaching, I went through this this program at Newfield, and it was a model to help share some complex things. And it was called the OAR model. And so it's being able to look at being the observer, what our actions tie into that, and then the results that we have. So when we don't transition and we have all these extra layers that we've built up, we observe and we see the world in a different way. And it can be tainted by things if we haven't really taken the time to just be and release those, or at least be able to observe them and not have them kind of like be attached or a part of us. And because we observe things in a different way, it's going to cause us to create some kind of actions that need to take place. And our actions can be different based on what we're processing in the current moment. And obviously that does affect our results as well and our outcome. And so we might sometimes get caught in a loop of doing the same things. And we're like, gosh, I know I've been trying to get out of this loop. And so really, it's not the actions always that need to shift, but it's how we see it and how we're observing the situation. And so those transitions can help just kind of get that clear perspective in being able to observe things in a different way. Has anyone seen this? This is the emotion wheel. So this emotion wheel, no, okay. Well, it's a nice, handy, I guess, tool to be able to just kind of hone in on how we're feeling. So this is the second piece. Transitions are important. It's a good check-in. I know in our society, we really have to keep doing the next thing. Someone mentioned earlier about the full plate. And so, so I lost my train of thought for a minute. It's also important to check in and be with what emotions are coming up as well. So this wheel was created by psychologist Robert Plutchik. And if you take a look at this, you can see that they have quadrants as far as what kind of emotion is happening and what it could mean in regards to uncovering it a little bit more. Is there sadness, the root cause, joy, and what kind of actions are related to that? Isolation, grief, and for sadness, for example. And so it has all of those helpful components to kind of hone in. So I know when I asked you guys at the very beginning of this call, how are things going? And a lot of you guys had mentioned some of the emotions that were tied to this as well. And so being able to just do that quick check-in, I think is helpful too, because it's also where am I observing? How am I showing up in the interaction that I'm having right now? So with emotions are really supposed to be short-term. And, they're supposed to just come and go. So if we have like an interaction, like presenting, I have, had an opportunity to do this and I'm a little nervous. And so nervousness might tie into something else. And so being able to just settle into that and figure out, well, why might I be nervous? And so with that, I can let it come in and let it go out. And that's the point of what emotions are supposed to do. They're supposed to come in for a short amount of time and then exit. However, with our day-to-day and all the things that are happening around us, we sometimes might be sharing the, sorry, there's things popping up here, but sharing the same emotion over and over. And so if we're not taking the time to understand it or try to release it, it starts to build up. And when it builds up, it shifts from an emotion and it turns into a mood. And again, that's our observing lens of how we see things. So if we are constantly in a state of nervousness or sadness, it's so important for us to honor it as it comes and then be able to let it go. Because if not, then how we're interacting and how we're engaging becomes that norm. And so that happens at the individual level. It happens, then we're radiating and projecting that energy at the group level and where we're interacting. And that can actually, of course, spread through the organization at the organizational level. And so as individuals, we have a huge impact on what we do and how we're sharing, which is a gift when we're acknowledging it and looking at it and taking time to really anchor and transition and pay attention to those emotions. So I would like to hear from you guys in regards to, I guess, moods, because we've got some different moods happening right now, not only at the organizational level, but also just at the society level. So what kind of moods are you guys observing in your current space that around you right now? Defensiveness. Yes, certainly seeing some of that. Yeah, a lot more anger. The energy is interesting. And when others are feeling overwhelmed, anger, yeah, a lot of burned out, frustration, yes. And it's really interesting to me when you guys had shared in the beginning of the call how you're feeling, you had a lot of different things on the wheel that you were experiencing: happiness, excitement. And now I'm seeing collectively there's a lot of exhaustion and anxiousness. So how are you guys staying in a state that's different from what you're seeing at a more global level? Lots of time in nature. Nature's a huge thing. I like that. Yes, staying curious. Now, again, we could say, and looking at this wheel, gosh, there's anxiety and there's all of these kinds of things tying to that. And looking at the external part of the wheel, we can see, well, gosh, if there's that anger, there's reaction. And where's the rage coming from? And being able to be an observer that's looking from the outside looking in, as opposed to really getting into the crux of it, because sometimes we can lose our anchor and our balance when we when we're right in the middle of it. Wow, somebody said they close their office door and turn work off. That's really impressive, because I know sometimes it's hard, and that's a good transition, right? Is being able to say, okay, I'm done with this moment. I'm closing the door and moving on to something else. I think we're also struggling with transitions in regards to like social media and some of those other things as well. So really setting those boundaries in those transitions. I like to see that. Separating work and home life. And that's been tricky, especially coming out of COVID, because some of that stuff has really interconnected quite a bit. Yeah, so, you know, it takes a little extra effort to incorporate those things that we know are better for us and help us show up as our best selves, and be able to shift. Unplugging. I need to unplug a little bit more myself. I have been really interested in like TikTok is got a lot of good information, but definitely need a time limit on accessing that information for sure. All right, I hope I captured everybody's comments. I'm trying to see if I can thumb back up. All right, so thank you guys for all of your really valuable input. And I think that's really important because we really learn from each other. And we learn from each other's experiences to try to mold what works best for us. So again, talking about the being portion, and I don't know, for some reason, we really think that it's less than doing stuff and being task oriented. And so again, I'm going to say transitions, carving those out. All of the great things that you said is the meditative piece of the house, walking, just taking breaths, and maybe shutting the door when you're done is the simple transition of moving on to something else. All of those are great. So hopefully maybe you jotted down some that folks had said, wrote down in the chat. And the second thing of really being is just being with the emotions, being with the emotions of your current state, and then realizing potentially, is it something that has turned into a mood, and does it need to shift, and what does that look like? So I am going to go ahead and go back to the OAR model here. So again, with those emotions, observing them within yourself, you guys are observing them as a collective for everybody else. I like what somebody said earlier too about staying curious. Curiosity helps again step outside that a little bit. And then as far as actions, because it can feel so overwhelming sometimes, is what are those little actions that you take when you catch yourself in those emotional pieces? So, we mentioned the walking and the transitions, but also maybe talking to someone about those and what does that look like? So the third one is more of a connection in action. And so with that, really looking at community. We talked about how, things have changed a lot since COVID. And, with that, I don't know about you guys, but I feel like the groups I connect with has been different, as well as things that I want to learn or explore has been different. And so with that, looking at different communities that I want to engage with. And what you guys were mentioning earlier, as far as the collective and feeling this anxiety and stress, is also, looking at maybe when we're feeling overwhelmed by some of those things, working with our community in smaller ways to be able to help with things. So I am curious, after you guys have come out of COVID, what kind of communities are you connecting with or working with to just help anchor yourself and reground? Okay, your church and exercising. So exercise groups. I know some people like to exercise by themselves. Volunteer to pack meals. Volunteering has been a big piece for me as well. Absolutely. Book clubs and mom groups, good. Family members, absolutely. They're a huge help. Absolutely. And I'm curious, a knitting group. I wish I knew how to knit. I am not good at that. Maybe I'll keep trying. I'll practice and find a group. Okay, good. Running, I have some friends that really enjoy running. I joke and say I'm only running when I'm chased. I haven't been able to get into that Zen moment of that, but anything that's helping you stay in the zone, with running and with some of that stuff. And you guys, have you noticed that you're really present in that moment and time kind of just dissipates and you're just really engrossed in the task that you're doing? That's huge. And being able to have that passion in any of those kinds of spaces is great. Right, so running and gardening was the last one there. All right, so staying grounded and bonding with that. Now, I am curious too, if you guys, do you carve out your time to make sure that you're continuing to do that stuff, or do you put that by the wayside when you have, the other stuff that kind of takes up a lot of our time sometimes? Yeah, you carve out time, good. Well, and I think it is so important. Yes, I'm glad to see that. Okay, yeah, and when it does get sidelined sometimes. So I know that some of us struggle with carving out time, and I saw again, the great transition. I would be curious to hear from some of you guys on how do you make it a priority? When we know the things that are most important for us that we should be doing, how do you make that a priority? What do you do to carve out time for that? Yeah, it is sometimes tough to put ourselves first. However, if we don't make that a priority in some of the things that we've talked about today, it's hard for us to show up as our best present self. Okay, get up earlier. Hopefully you're not cutting out too much sleep though. I like that. Yes, blocking it on your calendar, that it's not something that you take away from. Good. Yeah. So blocking that out. Well, and you know what? This, for me, to be present, it has been an interesting transition. I haven't done a webinar where I'm not as engaging with as many folks like verbally. And so being able to just talk in the chat, I feel like I'm a little disoriented. So I really appreciate you guys, hanging in there with me and chatting and giving some ideas. Because I think when we're not used to something or we're trying it differently for the first time, of course, we've got a learning curve. And so just having the grace of a community to be able to support us and, to give nuggets of encouragement and help as folks are trying new things, I think is a huge piece as well. And, as a society, with some of the things that we talked about in general with the overall moods, being able to what folks said, be curious and be non-judgmental and help folks, wherever they're at, I think is a huge piece as well. All right, so we talked again about just anchoring in the present moment, and transitions was one of the pieces that we talked about. So if you're not incorporating a transition, how I want to hear from you guys. What are you doing to incorporate a transition today? I know you guys talked about walking and what you do, but if you had a new one to pick, what are you going to try out? Anything new? Okay. That's all right. All right, so meditation. There are some great apps out there. I know my mind doesn't rest on its own with sometimes silence, and so I need that that guided meditation. So that is a cool a tool that I would use. Volunteering, I'm hearing that a lot, and there's so many great opportunities to volunteer right now, and so many organizations that need it. And so love that. Again, it's carving out time to do that, but it not only helps the community, it helps share your gifts, so that's great. A lunch break is going to be important. Yes, taking that time out today. And I don't know where everyone is calling in from today, but just listening to nature and settling into that for sure. Enjoying that sunshine if you've got it. Great. As far as emotions, you guys had such positive ones when you came in. Collectively, we talked about how to shift from those and what you're seeing collectively, but I think even volunteering helps with that and engaging. And again, the way we observe things, if we're seeing it in a way that we want different results, is being able to look at it differently, and it shifts everything for us. And you guys talked a lot about volunteering with the community piece. And so those were just 3 things I wanted to talk today about in regards to anchoring. I don't know why I was so nervous, but I really appreciate you guys all taking time out of your day. And I hope that just with the chat that you guys were able to get some good nuggets and take some time for yourself to be able to just ground and regroup and I appreciate you guys carving the time, and I'm going to honor some extra time for you guys today to transition into your next moment. Thank you again for your time. I really appreciate all of you. Have a great day, guys. Thank you. And that's a wrap.